This week is a decisive week for the Republic of Kenya. Thursday, the 13th of June, Treasury CS Professor Njuguna Ndung'u will be driven to Parliament in a ceremonial affair carrying a briefcase of budget estimates. And in this podcast, I want us to look at the impact of that document that is going to be read to Parliament tomorrow. And also at a time when the Finance Committee, led by Molo Member of Parliament Kimani Kuria, have retreated to write a statement, and at least the country is waiting whether they are going to put together, they're going to take into consideration some of the things that the public said they don't want in the taxes, to be taxed. So in this podcast, through a Scottish Kenyan-based professor, Professor Jim McFie, we are going to break it down and you will understand the real problem that our country is having and how we are likely heading the Germany route if we are not going to control our appetite for the taxes. But let me just bring you up to speed with what exactly you expect tomorrow in Njuguna Ndung'u's briefcase. The total budget for this year is 3.9 trillion. Out of this 3.9 trillion, this is the total money that we expect to spend, leave alone. This is what we need to spend for the next 1 year. Financial year 2024-2025. Out of this 3.9, 2.78 will go into recurrent expenditure. This means paying salaries, police, wages, and all that. Then, after 2.9 going for the wages, recurrent expenditure here, then 1.8 will be servicing debt. So, the Eurobonds and all the debts that the country owe, something that many of us have been asking, at least the debt register to be published. That document has never been made public. 1.8 trillion will go into that. Then will only remain the paltry 687 billion for development. So the money to construct that road there, that hospital, the other projects, is going to be 687 billion. Now this budget is funded through different means. And I want us to listen to Ndindi Nyoro explaining what, according to him, how this is going to work.
In the current estimate level, you realize the huge reduction is in deficit. And what is this that we are calling deficit? When you are making the budget, Yvonne, there is usually the revenue and the expenditure side. The revenue side for our budget, so that I make the point very clear, is made up of a few elements. One is the ordinary revenue. In our current scenario now, the budget we are considering is around 2.913 trillion Kenya shillings. Ordinary revenue is actually taxes.
That's tax collections.
Then number two, there is something we call A&A. That is the user fee when you get a government service and you pay for it. That's around, precisely around 441 trillion Kenya shillings, or thereabout. Just around 400 billion, sorry, not trillion. Then we expect to get grants of around 51 billion Kenya shillings. If you look at the figure I mentioned before of 3.914 trillion Kenya shillings, then there is some amount of money which you are budgeting for, but is not available on the table. Primarily, that is what is called deficit. Now, the deficit for this financial year is 514 billion Kenya shillings.
There is something that Ndindi Nyoro, who is the chairman of Budget and Appropriation Committee in the National Assembly, is saying that the amount of money that we are going to borrow to service our debt has reduced, and that has been packaged as something that Kenyans need to celebrate. But this is it. We are making projections of collecting 2.9 trillion. Over the years, for the last 10 years, government has been overestimating the revenue collection. So by the time we're heading to the finishing the next financial year, this financial year, if we will not be able to click 2.9 trillion, then it means that that deficit that Ndindi Nyoro is talking about will have to increase, because we will just have to borrow. When we start, the only loans, taxes. If the taxes are not going to, we are not going to collect enough, because I can tell you, this is normally a statement of reduce the deficit, but there is a language of reducing the deficit, but in real sense, somewhere in the middle of the financial year, we make projections and realize, oh, what, KRA is not going to hit that target. So what we do, we start borrowing. And then through that, we now start triggering Article 222, which is the supplementary estimates. So that is just one of the aspects that is really being put out there. So being told about the deficit of about 200. But two things happen. We steal that money. We collect. We might not collect enough. And without even collecting enough, the little we collect, we still steal it. So after stealing, the deficit increases. But I don't want to spell a doom. Now, up to this minute, I want us to look at the finance bill, because the finance bill is supposed to be centered into a law by 1st of July. So that is different from whatever is going to be read yesterday. Tomorrow is just going to be budget estimates. That's what the Treasury CS is going to read. But the monster is on the finance bill. And the finance bill is what carries what many people in this country say the monster. This document carries the tax proposals to achieve that target. And let me tell you something. You might have heard Jimmy Wanjigi and this is Jimmy Wanjigi and the Busia Senator Kio Mtata saying that what we are doing is even an illegality. Remember, we've already gone to Parliament tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to tell the country 3.9 budget, 3.9 trillion budget. But we've already set the target of what we want, how much we want to spend. But still the country is still talking about how to collect it. So what to feed? The finance bill is what is the document that carries the prescription, or rather the strategies of how we are going to get 3.9 trillion. Now, eco levy. This is going to be levying on all the imports. And it has some effect both on the pricing of goods here and also manufacturing. The other one is motor vehicle tax, circulation tax on tax owners. I think we've also spoken about this. Then the road maintenance levy, which is normally capped at 18 shillings. You know, out of pesa government in tax, 89 shillings out of the 200 of a litre of petrol goes to government is actually tax. 89 shillings. Now that will increase to 96 because out of that 89, 25 shillings that is taxed on 1 litre of petrol goes into fuel, into maintenance levy. Now Murkomen is also saying that because so many roads were destroyed by floods, the car owners will have to suffer, and not just car owners alone, plus any other person that will be using fuel. Fuel is going to increase by 7 shillings. That will have another effect. Then you have the 16% VAT on fuel and on VAT on bread. That is also going to increase the price of bread. I got this one very interesting. Yeah? Some very true here that I want us to look at. Robert Mbui, Kathiani member of parliament, was speaking in parliament, was saying that we are going to tax chamas.
I've mentioned that Kenya is not highly taxed because I think, I don't know, Tunisia, Morocco, they are taxed more. Their tax to GDP is higher. How do you compare Kenya with some of those countries? The average salary in Tunisia is 176,000 a month. Average salary in South Africa is 187,000 a month. Average salary in Morocco is 263,000 shillings a month. The average salary of a Kenyan is 22,000 shillings. How do you compare light and day? Mr. Speaker, let us talk the truth. Mr. Speaker, you know, when I listened to this team when they were speaking during the Kenya Kwanza team during the campaigns, they talked about raising the hustlers. In this finance bill, there is a proposal to tax welfare groups. Welfare groups are those chamas of our women when they put money together, Mr. Speaker, so that they can do table banking. 1,000 shillings each, they put it together, then it is taken by one. Now this team wants to tax that money, take money that these women have worked hard for, the hustler women of this country, the mamamboga, the boda boda, can you people be fair to Kenyans? Members, let us stand up and oppose this bill, all of us.
If you want to know even some of the janky aspects, something I've been saying here, the national feeding program was moved. There was a narrative that was pulled out. Government wants to introduce a levy, I don't know the levy or a tax, on junk food so that we can fund national feeding program. But listen to what Ndindi Nyoro said in Citizen TV when he was asked about this program.
Education seems to have lost. But if you look at even the question you had asked before, for example, about school feeding program, it's not here, but you had asked before.
Yeah.
You realize there is a reallocation. The allocation of who to handle what. Previously, you realize school feeding program has been at or more or less a parastatal called NACONEC. Then the ministry is reallocating the same for the department to handle exactly those roles. And therefore, in that respect, I want to assure all the people who are supported by government in that regard that that will continue.
Because so just to clarify, 2.3 million learners who depend on that school feeding program. When you reduce that allocation from, literally not just reduce it, you slash it from 4.9 billion to 0, you're saying that is reallocated?
Yvonne, I want to assure you, because Citizen TV is here and I'm also around, and I'll be back here. School feeding program is there. For example, you'll find many things in the budget.
So that's where we are as a country. Now, in all this, the Auditor General Nancy Gathungu has warned Kenya Kwanza administration and have told them that the revenue targets and those projections are unrealistic. It's not going to be achievable. And so today, Dr. Jim McFie, the Scottish economist, who is a lecturer, senior lecturer in Strathmore University, was interviewed in Spice FM. And he relayed clearly, I think, the best explanation as to why even the projections that the government is making cannot be achieved.
A meeting, a congress, I don't know what it was, but I mentioned, look, you know, the GDP grows, last year grew in Kenya by 5.6%, okay? And so now the GDP grows. If it grows by 5.6%, theoretically there is 5.6% more money available. Now, the Kenya Revenue Authority is then given a target of 12% by government. Now, where do you get the extra money from? You know, if the economy has grown by 5.6%, okay, the amount of money has grown by 5.6%. So if you now say we want 12% more, you've got to start taxing a whole lot of things.
Clear. Saying, you know, if you look at our GDP and the targets that I've given to KRA, that's why KRA are breaking our backs. And really the government is taxing itself to non-existence. You know, I read a comment, someone was saying, not a comment, someone was saying, the leaders, or rather the government, have only found one solution to its problems. And we have weaponized taxation as the only tool to tax, as the only tool to, you know, to put yourself where you want. But in real sense, we are overestimating that taxation. And that is what Dr. J. McFie is saying. Now, the Kenyan problem is threefold. Kenyan, and I like that the professor the doctor is really putting up that. This is something I've been personally insisting here. Corruption, there is something in this country called living within our means. And in his explanation, he's saying that living within our means does not just mean that you need to eat samaki. You don't eat samaki when if you can afford sukuma wiki. Everything must start from the top. And corrosion, you know, what has corroded our governance is corruption. And to give an example about if the corruption starts from the top, it will come down. Listen to his example.
And you know, one of the things that we just don't realize in Kenya is we've got to live within our means. And you know, that's not only the government, mind you, it's principally the government, because you know, I've always thought about this thing of leading by example. And you know, when I think about that, you know, that saying, you will lead by example always. Always. What do I mean by that? The managing director of Nyaga Stockbrokers, we're going now back 18 years, okay? But the managing director of Nyaga Stockbrokers stole between 800 million and 1,300,000,000 shillings of Kenyans' money. Now, what's the effect on the whole of the firm? A secretary owns a block of flats up at Dagoretti Corner. The messenger was driving a car. So, you see, this happens, you know, you always will lead by example. So, if you're a crook, everybody below you is a crook.
And that's what he's saying, that if we say we live within our means, then start. The problem in this country is it doesn't start at the top there. Yes. It doesn't start at the top. He was giving a very interesting example that World Bank wanted some report on the value of the traditional railway. Or probably they wanted to advance some funding on making it better or something. They just wanted to make it better. I think it had been destroyed sometime, so they wanted just to do something. Then they sent the government, they told the government to evaluate the cost of that, the value, and how people have been using it. Now, all the reports were saying that the use of that SGR is going down, just like Posta. But when this report was handed over to the World Bank, someone who was doing this report kept on showing, and he presented the very raw picture that the value of this thing has been going down. But now, from next month, it will go up. World Bank did not advance the loan because they asked, if it's been going down, what is the evidence that it's now going up? And I think it was a research that's to be made on viability of maybe another subsidiary program. I like this. The second Kenyan problem is too much imitation. Too much imitation. Why? He's using an example of saying that our GDP is gonna be, you know, a percentage of our GDP. We speak about percentage of the tax as a percentage of our GDP. And last year, we've always been reporting that, you know, we had a good GDP in terms of the imports, the exports and the imports. But do you realize that even the dollar was not trading well? So listen to this, because I've also married with what the president said about this issue of taxation. And that is why the Scottish economist is saying we are just imitating.
She knows the capacity of the economy to extract that income. Okay? Now, you see, one of the things that we got to understand, we achieved something last year. Our exports last year were more than 1 trillion shillings for the first time ever. But you see, you've got to keep in mind, let's suppose my exports are $1 million. If the rate of exchange is 130 to the dollar, that'll be 130 million shillings. If it's 160 to the dollar, my exports then will be 160 million. So you've got to remember that our exports went up from about 849 billion to 1 trillion and 47 million. I've got the numbers here, okay? But anyway, in this case here, you know, how much of that was purely due to the depreciation of the value of the Kenya shilling?
Right.
You see?
So it was an actual volume increase.
It was. Well, in some cases it was, okay? We produce... See, the problem is, in Kenya, one of the big things that we suffer from, I don't know, I use the word suffer. Possibly I use that badly, okay? But, you know, Kenyans are incredibly good at imitating.
Copy-pasting. You know, some of us, when we say these things here, some of you see us as, we are just pessimists. This is what I normally say. You cannot go to Europe. When you go to Europe, those things, and you sit with those Wazungos, they tell you our economy is doing this, we're doing. Then you come here and start copy pasting. It doesn't work like that. We need to understand. We need to contextualize anything. I think we don't contextualize. We just say, oh, that has worked in Vietnam or where? Let's bring it here. Uganda is doing, I don't know what a percentage of the GDP. France, I don't know, is doing what. Russia is doing at a percentage of their GDP. You come and say, okay, ours is a percentage of a GDP like our peers. You see that discussion? Now that is what that economist is talking about. Lastly, the cost of manufacturing.
Cost of production is so much higher in Kenya than it is in Uganda. Now, if we talk about a free trade agreement for the whole of Africa, what's going to happen? I have a past student, Isaac Njuguna, okay, and he's actually in the egg business. Now, you can actually bring a crate of eggs from Uganda and sell it anywhere in Kenya cheaper than production costs in Kenya. So this is why the people in the egg business say, look, we've got to stop these imports from Uganda. He himself buys all of his raw material from Uganda, except for lime from Koru. Everything else, maize, sunflower seeds, etc., 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 all of it is bought in Uganda. I'm in the coffee business, okay? 4 coffee factories in Western have closed down. The farmers will actually get more for their raw coffee in Uganda than in Kenya. And yet, when they go and buy their petrol, when they buy their Tusker, well, you've got to get the Uganda equivalent, that when you buy your sugar, when you buy your unga, when you buy, all of those things are cheaper. And, so the point here is we've got to think about how we can become more efficient, more competitive. A number of years ago, the largest foreign direct investment in Uganda came from Kenya. For the latest figures that I have, okay, because you can't get these numbers immediately, but we were the 4th largest foreign direct investor in Uganda in 2022. Mm-hmm. And the amount we invested, $7.5 billion, okay, was in fact more than 20% of the total foreign direct investment by other countries in Kenya.
In what sectors are you investing?
Well, in manufacturing. You see, this is why if we go back to 2019, in 2019, manufacturing made up 8.4% of our GDP. At one stage it was, up towards 15%. The only problem is that was the time when China was really, really very, very, they could produce at a very low cost. This is what happens. You see, you take the normal rate of tax. In the UK, the rate of corporate tax, okay, it's dropped, okay? It's now about 18%, okay? But you see, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, all of these companies have their headquarters in Dublin, Ireland. And, Ireland, its economy is one of the fastest growing in the European Union, okay? Germany is actually in recession. They're going down because, the price they have to pay for the gas that they're now forced to buy from the United States is 6 times what it used to be from Russia. The pipeline was blown up, okay, by let's face it, by the Americans, okay? And so the situation now is that, many German companies are actually now saying, how do we solve this problem? Volkswagen has a big plant in China, but the Americans have told the Germans, now, look, you close that thing down. There's also a big pharmaceutical company in Germany which operates in China. Again, the Americans have said, you close that thing down. You got to stop trading. But the Americans themselves trade, okay? The amount they buy from China is about $380 billion a year. But anyway, so the situation here is, you're absolutely right. You see, what we're doing is we're taxing ourselves out of existence.
Oh. And has presented a very good example here that I want us to hear. So clearly, if we tax ourselves, the manufacturers of edible oil are complaining. They're saying, if you increase the FDI and the taxation on the raw materials used that are all imported here, then we're going to have a problem. It's not going to work for all of us. It's not going to favor the country. When the taxation is too much, even the consumption goes down. For example, fuel. Even that fuel consumption goes down. People start leaving their cars. You increase the cost of fuel, you increase everything, people will leave their cars home and just go back to work and go to work walking. So there is the issue of manufacturing, and manufacturing is an engineer of this economy, is what is going to kickstart this economy, because people will get a way on how they can go and make money. They can get jobs. So it's a very clear explanation, and that is part of the problem. We are looking at that taxation only as a tool of collecting money. But also, remember, there is a very good balance that needs to be struck. Even as we collect revenue, but what is the impact of the taxes we are imposing on manufacturing? And that's why companies are leaving the country. They're saying, we can't. Thank you.